Good morning, my Hebrews and Shalomi homies. We are, yes, these are words, Hebrew brother, and Shalomi homie. My homies that I hang out with, that we say shalom to. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Yeah, the best words, tremendous, believe me, bigly. All right, we are in Wayikra 12, Leviticus 12, Wayikra. Remember, if you have to pronounce Hebrew, just pretend that you have really bad allergies and there's something in the back of your throat. Right? Or if like somebody has a really good rear naked chokehold on you and you're trying to breathe, that's a good way to start speaking Hebrew. Like, it's prerequisite. Kind of a jacked up right here is a prerequisite for proper Hebrew pronunciation. All right, my name is T. They call me the Bear. This is the Bear Independent channel where we talk about preparedness, we read the Bible, and we do our best to put a smile on the Father's face and also smack mosquitoes out of the sky. If you're wondering what this shirt is, this was given to me by Brother Gordon from the APN, and it says, I'd rather be in my sukkah. Feast of Tabernacles. Can't wait. Beginning of October this year. I got a little bit of work to do on the sukkah over here, y'all. I need a roof on this thing. Well, actually, technically, sukkahs don't have roofs. This is going to be our place of appointment. I guess we'd call it the tabernacle / gazebo. We do need to build a sukkah, though. But it's not time yet. Hebrew bushcrafting. Yeah. Keeping the old ways. Our coffee this morning is brought to us by Yah. Thank you. Holy water. We're in the scriptures, literally the scriptures, isr-messianic.org, India Sierra Romeo-messianic.org. Just Google or put in the YouTube search bar, Bear's Bible, Bear Independent Bible, and you'll get the whole spiel about why I use this. And so last week, we've been trying to do 2 chapters per week. Last week, we were in Leviticus 11, the dietary law, and we did 2 chapters. It was just, they weren't both in Leviticus. We did Leviticus 11 and Mark 7 for a compare-contrast on the dietary law and as to whether or not we are still supposed to do this. We are. Okay, cool. So we're in 12 this week, and 12 is a short chapter. Listen, everybody sit down, get your coffee. If the worship band could bring it down a little bit, there's donuts in the back and some kind of weird like pastry thing. I don't know what's in it, but there's always that one pastry that's left that you're like, is this biological warfare? What is this? Is this a listening device that somebody planted? Why is this here? You guys know what I'm talking about. Everybody here has been to Sunday church. You're like, no, I don't think I'm going to get that one. I don't know. It looks like it's the same one that's been there for 3 weeks. Probably is. Don't get that pastry. Who brings those anyway? Who brings those? Bring pizza. Like, if we do church, we're going to bring pizza. I think we should do that. It's going to have to be homemade pizza because it's on Shabbat. By the way, just putting this out there. I got half a mind to start, like, doing church. At least having an assembly. Because a church is just people who get together and hang out in the name of Yah, right? And we did that last week in Florida, which was the bomb. And I kind of miss it. I like having people around, which is a new thing for me. That's like, this past weekend was the 3rd time I've ever read the Bible around anybody else in the last year and a half, other than my family. It was good. Shut up, read the Bible, T. Roger that. Leviticus 12, Wayikra 12, and Yahweh spoke to Moshe. Now see, we're dealing with childbirth here. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel. That's us, remember? That's us. When a woman has conceived and has given birth to a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as in the day of her monthly separation. She is unclean. So when Aunt Flo is in town, that woman is unclean to you. You guys are not, no hashtag go team, okay? There's none of that, okay? And all the all the mill speak is coming to mind. I'm like, all right, we're reading the Bible. Don't use any of those words or phrases. I just barely caught it though. Just barely caught it. So when a woman is in her monthlies, she is unclean to you for #GoTeam, which is, you know, Adam. Yeah. You can go back to the beginning of the Shabbat playlist and start in Genesis and understand where the phrase #GoTeam comes from. Because TEEM means the earth is teeming with life, to multiply life, and to multiply life as human beings. There's this certain type of conduct we must engage in that's actually pretty darn fun. So get off of my Bible, bug. Creeping things and swarming things. So no #GoTeam when the monthlies are on. And so what we're saying here as well is that, hey, if you have a boy kid, she's also unclean, just as if the separation as if she was on her monthly. And on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin is circumcised, meaning the boy kid. Why the 8th day? Well, first of all, we can go to Genesis 17:13, and we will, because it's right here. Go to Genesis 17:13. Okay, T. Thanks, guys. No problem, T. Genesis 17:13. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your silver has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an, everlasting covenant. How long? Everlasting covenant. Like until next Tuesday? No, everlasting. But Messiah's back, so everlasting. Yeah, but Jesus the everlasting. Yeah, remember, embodied law. And in fact, when we read the Brit Hadashah this morning, which this will post on Friday night, 6 p.m. Central, then the Brit Hadashah will post on Sunday, the New Testament. And yeah, because this Old Testament stuff didn't go away. It actually got expanded upon, but not replaced, which is, go away, bug, super cool. Good stuff. And you should be praying daily for salvation, in thanks of salvation, because, man, this is not a works-based theology, lest any man should boast. No, it's by grace through faith we are saved. But as a fruit of our spirit, at least for me, I have the conviction to keep this Torah, to read this Tanakh, the first 5 books of the Bible, and to do these things because the Father says an everlasting covenant, okay? Because this is straight from Yahweh, straight from the mouth of the Lord. Do this forever, an everlasting covenant. And an uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And Elohim, the Father, said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. So where's all this coming from? Elohim, the Most High, little guy you might have heard of, named the creator of the universe. So we take those things seriously because we have a conviction to do so. So here in the 8th day, you circumcise the foreskin. Now, modern medicine has learned or discovered or rediscovered that on the 8th day, the levels of vitamin K in a 8-year-old or 8-day-old boy are off the charts. Why is that important? Vitamin K is vital to healing. And it also, I believe, now I'm not a medical doctor, nor do I even attempt to play one on YouTube, but I also believe it has something to do with your ability to fight off infection. Vitamin K is really good for you. So if you're trying to, like if you got a bad infection or a wound that needs to heal, you eat an entire box of Special K cereal, and then that'll accelerate the process. Now, 8-day-old boys are like off the charts with their vitamin K. So it actually, once again, we see real tactical wisdom, real logical wisdom in this book. Right? The difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is knowing the things, and wisdom is knowing how to employ the things, right? And so putting it into action. And so here we have this instruction on the 8th day, man, you circumcise these kids. Why? Because they're super high in vitamin K on that day. Now, again, modern Judaism has all types of practices of man, doctrines and dogmas that have nothing to do with this book, just like modern Christianity does. I would say, within reason, most Jews and most Christians have a theology that has nothing to do with the actual words of the Bible, which is a shame, man. It really is. And I say that in love, because if we just open our Bibles and read it, we have clear instruction from the Father and from the Son as to how we are to conduct ourselves. So, super duper tactical, practical, 8th day is the day. But the Jews today, they do this weird thing where the rabbi uses their mouth to cleanse the circumcision. That's disgusting, man. You don't put your mouth on that ever. That's gross. That's gross. Don't do that. Like, yuck. Talk about disgusting traditions of man. Yuck. Gross. Yuck. I mean, that's pedophilia, dude. Don't do that. That's disgusting. Not into that. There was a huge shadow over here in the woods that just moved. Probably a deer, because the deer bed down in that thicket on the other side of these sentinel pines over here. But just in case, we are armed. You guys know this. All right. Moving on. And she remains in the blood of her cleansing 33 days. So after the 7 days, plus 33 days, for a total of 40 days, she is to be unclean. Now, listen, if you have a wife and that wife has had a baby at any time while you've had this wife, you pretty much know that, bro, there's no hashtag go team for at least a month after the baby comes. And she's probably pretty mad at you anyway, because of all the pain that you just put her through. Because, yeah. Because you did the things to her. It's all your fault. Even though it definitely takes two to tango. I mean, she was there too. I'm just saying. Anyway, 40 days total, which it's interesting. There's this recurring theme of 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights with Noah. And 40 days Moshe was up on the mountain with the Father. And 40 days Messiah was in the wilderness. And 40 days a woman is unclean after she births a male child. And she remains in the blood of her cleansing 33 days, and she does not touch whatever is set apart, and she does not come into the set apart place until the days of her cleansing are complete. But if she gives birth to a female child, then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her monthly separation, and she remains in the blood of her cleansing for 66 days, for a total of 80. So it's twice as long with a girl kid. I've done quite a bit of research on this, and the long and short is I can't find a good answer as to why. And I do not believe that the Father is saying that women are twice as unclean as men are, or girls are twice as clean as boys are. I don't know. The supposition has been made that it's more important for a mother to bond with a girl child, so that, because the mother is going to be more instrumental in the raising of that girl, so they have a tighter bond as she grows up. Maybe. It's been supposed that, that because daddies love their daughters more, that separation, that 80 days, and then daddy gets to be with the girl, that they love them even. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for this. And everybody that I consulted for a good answer on this didn't have a good answer either. So long and short, I don't know, but based upon the continued practical wisdom of this book, I'm going to go with it. There's several things in this book that I don't quite understand, but as I've said before, I don't have an interest in serving an Elohim, of serving the Most High, that I can quantify fully and explain. If I can understand it with my physical brain, why worship it? Where's the mystery? Where's the all power, right? And so it's good to have things that we don't understand. It's good to have questions, and I don't know. So And when the days of her cleansing are complete, shut up and read the Bible, T. Roger that. And when the days of her cleansing are complete for a son or for a daughter, she brings to the priest a lamb, year-old, as an ascending offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the door of the tent of appointment. There's a lot of, why does she need to bring a sin offering? The ascending offering's obvious, right? It's obvious. I mean, you had a kid. That's praise, especially in a time in human history where lots of children died and lots of mothers died, okay? Although if we remember from Exodus that the midwives, Pharaoh's midwives, were like, man, these Hebrew babies, these are stout, and these women are stout, you know? They're like, yeah, these are good breeding stock. But there's obvious praise there. We had a kid. This is awesome. Praise the Most High. That's awesome, right? So the ascending offering makes sense. The sin offering, there's lots of conjecture and opinion on this. This rabbi says this evangelical guy says this guy, blah, 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 blah. I almost think of it as an incidental. Like, I'm positive. You give me an 80-day stretch or a 40-day, you give me a 20-minute stretch, I'm going to sin somewhere in there. It's going to happen. Like, not because I want to, you know, and definitely don't be engaged in willfully sinning, right? But there's going to be some transgression of law, major or minor, in any given period of time, which is why we have the covering of the Son, the atoning sacrifice of Yeshua HaMashiach, of Jesus the Christ. And, right, we have salvation. We need it because we can't do this thing perfectly. But that doesn't mean we don't try. To be a Christian, to me, is to be as Christ-like as possible. And in the doing of being Christ-like, boy, do I realize how dislike I am to my Messiah. And that makes the grace so much more valuable. The obedience really makes the grace valuable, because I just find in my life, in my backstory of being raised in the Baptist church and then non-denominational churches, and man, the grace was cheap. Well, just don't sin anymore, brother. Like, well, what's sin? Oh, it's falling short of the mark. What mark? Well, you know. No, I don't. I don't know. What mark? I've got one now. And I've always had one. I just never read my Bible. I just farmed my salvation out to the lowest bidder. It's like, oh, well, this church feels good. I guess we'll go here. Yeah. Feelings are the lowest common denominator of feedback for how you should be conducting your life, says me. Right? It's a feedback mechanism. You don't get caught in the feelings loop. Please, another story for another time. Anyway, I think it's an incidental sin offering. You're going to sin. We're all going to sin. And if you look at the comparison between the two offerings, the offering of praise is a lamb, year-old lamb. Like, that's significant. We'll just say in today's market, that's $200, $150, $200. And a turtle dove for the sin offering, like, that's $4. So, right? And I just see it almost as a token sin offering, because humans, we sin. And I guarantee you, in a 40-day stretch or an 80-day stretch, Mother Teresa would have sinned during that time, okay? And he shall bring it before Yahweh and make atonement for her, and this is the priest, right? And be cleansed from the flow of her blood. This is the Torah, the instruction for her who has given birth to a male or a female. And if she is not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. One is an ascending offering and the other is a sin offering, and the priest shall make atonement for her, and she shall be clean. So that's a concession to those that wouldn't necessarily have the cash flow, the personal, you know, what do you want to call it? They don't have the money to buy a lamb, okay? Cool. And it's one of the things that I love about the Old Testament is the concept that we're all equals in the eyes of the Most High. And we're all equals in the eyes of the Son as well, right? Like your net worth doesn't matter one iota to the Father. Remember that. Like, and especially if you're using it to be disobedient, or you're not winning victories for the kingdom with your purchasing power and your revenue. Come on now. So if you can buy a lamb to atone for your sin, or to as an ascending offering, or whatever, as a praise offering, good, awesome. If you can't, you get a turtle dove, man. Simple. It's like saying, I can't afford to eat. Everybody can afford a $1 cheeseburger at McDonald's, right? There's a way for everybody. And so that of course is archetypical of Messiah. It doesn't matter who you are. There's a way for everybody, which is mind-blowing. So that is the Torah, the instruction for if you're a lady who has babies, that's how you do it, okay? Okay. I'm not an expert in this. I've been there a couple of times, mostly holding hands, closing eyes, and praying. And then, wah, and a baby comes out. I actually almost got thrown out of the delivery room when Aspen was born, because they put her in that, looks like the thing that they put fried chicken under at the convenience store, right? That heat lamp thing. They put her in there, and she's laying there. And the nurse is working on her. I said, ma'am. And she kind of looks over her shoulder, and she said, yeah. I said, ma'am. And she looks over her shoulder. I said, listen. Where would be the best place on this newborn to get her first tattoo? Because I'm leaving directly from here and going to the tattoo shop, and I want to get a father-daughter tattoo. And she was like, get out. I was kidding. She didn't think I was. So be careful with that. Don't joke with delivery nurses. They'll swat you. All right, and so now we finished the chapter, which means we get to drink coffee. We are in now Leviticus 13. 13 and 14 are both long chapters. And they deal with leprosy. I think we'll do at least 13. We'll see if we get to 14, because they're freaking long. But if I can just shut up and read, I'll try and just shut up and read. Let's do it. I'm sorry, guys. My bad. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, because most of the time Yahweh speaks to Moshe, and then Moshe speaks to Aaron. But in this case, and this is going to be important because the priests are heavily involved in what's about to happen. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, when a man has on the skin of his body a swelling, a scab, or a bright spot, and it shall become on the skin of his body like a leprous infection, then he shall be brought to Aaron, the priest, or to one of his sons, the priests. And the priest shall look on the infection on the skin of the body, and if the hair on the infection has turned white, and the infection appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is a leprous infection. And the priest shall look at him and pronounce him unclean. You're unclean. Just like that. But if the bright spot is white on the skin of his body and does not appear to be deeper than the skin, and its hair has not turned white, then the priest shall shut up the infected one 7 days. Quarantine. And the priest shall look at him on the 7th day, inspection, and see if the infection appears to be as it was, is it the same, and the infection has not spread on the skin, then the priest shall shut him up another 7 days. No improvement. You're still quarantined another week. And the priest shall look at him again on the 7th day and see if the infection has darkened and the infection has not spread on the skin. Then the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is a scab, and he shall wash his garments and be clean. Okay, cool. Go home, wash yourself, wash your clothes, be clean. Which we're going to see here in a moment. I did some research on this. There's several corroborating studies that have found that this leprosy, and there's various forms of leprosy as well. So there's some that are like benign, no big deal, like, basic, kind of like chicken pox-ish almost. And then there's some that are, malignant leprosy that are bad, like bad, like not good for you, can kill you bad, and are highly contagious. And so depending on, and what we're getting into here is the priest is inspecting. Show me your arm, Bob. And they look. They're like, okay, yeah, That's leprosy A, no big deal. Go hang out in the hut for 7 days and you go back to work. And then they're like, all right, Chaim, come here. Oh, that's leprosy B. You're outside the camp, bro, sorry. Scrub, 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 in between your fingers, underneath your fingernails. Get out of here, Chaim. We'll see you in a month or two, right? So there's different levels here. But in researching this, the several different studies have found that on the skin of a certain animal, I'll tell you which one in a minute, there are these little tiny minute, by the quadrillions, little tiny minute insects that cause these skin lesions. And these insects can get in your clothing, they can get in your bed mats, they're insects, they're little tiny, almost like bed bugs, but even smaller than that, like lice, but even smaller than that, little itty bitty 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 tiny things, right? But they're there, and they can be carried on the skin of swine, of pigs. Yet another reason you don't handle, like we just saw this in Leviticus 11, right? Not only do you not eat these things, but you don't handle the carcasses. And if you do handle the carcasses, you're unclean, right? And you have to remove yourself and wash and then come back. Well, and remember, this isn't like 12 guys out in the wilderness, okay? This is 3 to 5 million people, 600,000 military-age males, 3 to 5 million people total, and then all their flocks and herds. And so I'm getting itchy just talking about this. And so having an outbreak is not cool, which is why people are being quarantined or put outside the camp for the good of the tribe, right? Because the tribe comes first. The tribe is made up of individuals and is reliant upon individuals, but the needs of the tribe supersedes the needs of the individuals. Okay, good. Because a strong tribe can take care of the individuals. A weak tribe will fall apart, and then the individuals will not thrive on their own, which is the history of man. People coalesce into groups and do big, difficult things together because many hands make light work. Coffee. All right. 13:7. But if the scab spreads further over the skin, and after he has been seen by the priest for cleansing, he shall see the priest again. Didn't work the first time, Aaron. Let's try this again. And the priest shall look and see. If the scab has spread on the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is leprosy. Dun, dun, dun. When the infection of leprosy is on a man, then he shall be brought to the priest. And the priest shall look to see if the swelling on the skin is white, and if it has turned the hair white, and if there is a spot of raw flesh in the swelling. It is an old leprosy on the skin of his body, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. He does not shut him up, for he is unclean. And if leprosy breaks out all over the skin, and the leprosy shall cover all of the skin of the infected one, from his head to his foot, wherever the priest looks, then the priest shall look and see if the leprosy has covered all his body. He shall pronounce the infected one clean. It has turned white. He is clean. But the day raw flesh appears on him, he is unclean. Meaning, if it's all scabbed over, there's no open wounds, you're good. You're not going to transmit this to others. But if there's open wounds, bro, keep that outside of the camp. We can't afford that, right? Because mucous membranes and open wounds, infection, all that stuff gets covered up. So you don't want that spreading, which is what we're getting into here. And the priest shall look at the raw flesh and pronounce him to be unclean. The raw flesh is unclean. It is leprosy. Or when the raw flesh changes and turns white again, he shall come to the priest, and the priest shall look at him and see if the infection has turned white. Then the priest shall pronounce the infected one clean. He is clean. And when the body has a boil in its skin, and it is healed, and the place of the boil there comes a white swelling or a bright spot, reddish white, then it shall be seen by the priest. Boils, pimples. Yeah, we're going to get into pimples here in a minute. They call them eruptions, which is nice. That's lovely. By the way, if you're wondering, like, why does it look like this out here. Part of it is because my screen protector has a crack in it that makes this third of the screen fuzzy. I'm working on it, I'll fix it. The other part is it is gonna storm here today, like violent storms forecasted. Which, what else is new? Like, it doesn't just sprinkle here. It's either like no rain or get out the life jackets. So that's what's going on. All right. So you got a boil. And the place of the boil there comes a white swelling or a bright spot, reddish white, and it shall be seen by the priest. What a great job. And the priest shall look and see if it appears deeper than the skin, subcutaneous, and its hair has turned white, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous infection which is broken out of the boil. But if the priest looks at it and sees no white hairs on it, and it is not deeper than the skin but is faded, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. You just go to sick bay. And if it is spread further over the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous infection. But if the bright spot stays in its place, and it has not spread, it is the scar of the boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. So obviously they had to deal with this stuff. This was an issue. And yeah, this is just the instruction of how to do that. Now, in the end of days, it will be like the days of Noah. Ish. This is my days of Noah dance. You like this? So, I'm just kind of boogieing, sorry. I have a sneaking suspicion, and I don't quite know why, but I think we're going to need this instruction at some point. So, what do? Well, there it is. Okay. You know, and there's been lots of people who have said this is from radiation because the Ark of the Covenant was a nuclear reactor, or the Ark of the Covenant was a microwave radio used to communicate with aliens, and blah, 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 blah. I just have a feeling like if that was the case, then Yah would have said, and the Ark of the Covenant is a microwave radio with which you speak to me. Like, these, we've covered before just how freaking logical these books are. Like, you just do what it says. Well, it requires the appropriate interpretation. No, it doesn't. Like, they name the books after the first 3 words in each book. Pretty practical, bro. Pretty practical. Like, do this forever means do this forever. Don't do this means don't do this. Okay. Like, there's not a lot of interpretation required there. Like, it's literally black and white. But I just feel like we're gonna need this sooner or later, and so, yeah, coffee. I can't wait to get these get to these eruptions, y'all. It is a leprous infection. 26. But if the priest looks at it and sees there are no white hairs in the bright spot, it is not deeper than the skin, but it is faded. Then the priest shall shut him up 7 days, and the priest shall look at him on the 7th day, inspection time. If it spreads further over the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous infection. Gosh, sand fleas. That's cool. Little itty bitty, so tiny. See, we're talking about the things, and oh my goodness. But if the bright spot stays in its place and has not spread on the skin, but has faded, it is a swelling from a burn, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. For it is a scar from a burn. And when a man or a woman has an infection on the head or in the beard, then the priest shall look over the infection and see if it appears deeper than the skin. There is thin yellow hair in it. Then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an eruption, a leprosy of the head or beard. But when the priest looks at the infection of the eruption and sees that it does not appear deeper than the skin, and there's no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut up the one with the infection of the eruption 7 days. Like, ingrown hair? Question mark? I don't know. Kind of like not my shtick, man. Like, I don't do the boils. Like, never had to do the boils and eruptions. But if I ever had to, now I know what to do. So, and on the 7th day, the priest shall look at the infection and see if the eruption has not spread, and there is no yellow hair in it, and the eruption does not appear deeper than the skin, then he shall shave himself. But the eruption he does not shave. And the priest shall shut up the one with the eruption another 7 days. And on the 7th day the priest shall look at the eruption and see if the eruption has not spread all over the skin and does not appear deeper than the skin. And the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his garments, and he shall be clean. Woo! But if the eruption spreads further over the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall look at him and see if the eruption has spread over the skin. The priest needs not seek for yellow hair, he is unclean. So if it spreads, don't look for yellow hairs, bro, you're unclean. Cool, you know, there's a hack, there's a shortcut. But if the eruption appears, excuse me. But if the eruption appears to have stayed, and there is a black hair grown up in the eruption, it has healed. He is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. And when a man or a woman has bright spots on the skin of the body, white bright spots, and the priest shall look and see if the bright spots on the skin of the body are dull white, or if a white spot that grows on the skin, he is clean. And when a man loses the hair of his head, he is bald, he is clean. Now, why does that matter? Because baldness is a symptom of leprosy. So if you're just going bald, and your neighbor's like, listen, Malachi, I'm worried that you got the leprosy. You need to go see Aaron. And he's like, no, I'm just bald. Be like, go see Aaron. Okay, but I'm just bald. And then Aaron would be like, you're just bald. You're clean. Quit, you're making me all mashugana. Right? And then Chaim would go back and be like, I'm all very verklempt now because I told you I'm just bald. Right? So if you're just bald, you're just bald. You don't necessarily have leprosy if you're bald or balding. What you do have is high testosterone, and you should probably do some bench presses, some squats, and some deadlifts, because that's good stuff, right? And strong people are harder to kill. So, yeah. Go do some of that. And literally scream while you're doing it. You'll feel tough. You feel like that guy from Game of Thrones, the Mountain. Right? That's what you should go do. It says me, that's not what the Bible says. That's what T says. And if the hair has fallen from his forehead, he is bald on the forehead, he is clean. And when there is on the bald head or bald forehead a reddish white infection, it is leprosy breaking out on his bald head or his bald forehead. And the priest shall look at it and see if the swelling of the infection is reddish white on his bald head or his bald forehead as the appearance of leprosy on the skin of the body. He is a leprous man. He is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him unclean without fail. His infection is on his head. As for the leper who has the infection, his garments are torn and his head is uncovered, and he has to cover his upper lip and cry, unclean, unclean. So this is a way of marking people. Why? Infectious disease, yo. That's why. So, and it's, uncovering your head and tearing your garments is also a sign of mourning. So, like, mourning. Not like, oh, it's the beautiful morning. Like, no, I'm in mourning. Yeah, that. So, excuse me. It denotes that this person has an affliction, okay? And, yeah. I had another thought and it just completely escaped me. Covering the upper lip. Some people said this was grow a mustache. Now, I wonder if there was like a special mustache, like the leprous mustache, because I would have done the big circle like that. And in fact, if you are in my Hebrew camp in end times and you get leprosy, that's going to be the protocol. The leprosy mustache is going to be like giant circular like this. And if you can't grow a mustache like that, we will spin goat hair into extensions and weave them in and then wax them so that everybody has these gigantic bicycle wheel mustaches. And we'll know that all the mustachioed men, and even women, we're going to do this to you too, women, if you have leprosy in our camp. You get the goat hair mustache. It's what it is. It says right here in the Bible. This is why you don't leave things up to the interpretations of men. Because you end up with... This is the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion says you got to cover your upper lip, which could just be this. I'm sorry. Spirituality says, the book says, just cover your upper lip. Religion says, our tradition is that you have to have a waxed goat hair extension, giant bicycle wheel mustachioed mustache, or you're sinning, right? That's the difference between religion and spirituality. I have a deep and personal relationship with my Creator and my Redeemer, and I read His Word every day. That's not religion. That's spirituality. I know who made me and why I was made, and I know what mission I'm on. That's awesome. That ain't religion, bro. But yeah, for real, don't get leprosy in our camp. Handlebars. You ladies are gonna look ridiculous with these giant, we're all gonna look ridiculous, but especially you ladies with these giant handlebar mustaches. See, this is why you stick around for 40 minutes of me reading around about leprosy, so you get little nuggets like that. He is unclean all the days he has the infection. He is unclean. He is unclean, and he dwells alone. His dwelling place is outside the camp. 46, right there in 1346, it tells us 3 times you're unclean. Okay, cool. So, foot stomp that. Dwells alone. His dwelling place is outside the camp. And when a garment has an infection of leprosy in it, in a woolen garment or a linen garment, or in the warp or weft of linen or wool, or in leather or in any leather work, and the infection shall be greenish or reddish in the garment or in the leather, or in the warp or weft of any leather object, it is an infection of leprosy and shall be shown to the priest. This is what I was talking about. Those little bugs get in there, and as a residue of them being in there, they create this reddish, greenish, yuck, bleh, bleh. And the priest shall look at the infection and shall shut up the infection for 7 days. Shut up, infection. If I wanted you to talk, infection, I'd tell you to talk. Sorry. And he shall look at the infection on the 7th day. And when the infection is spread in the garment or in the warp of the weft or the leather or any leather work, the infection is an active leprosy. It is unclean. And he shall burn that garment or the warp of the weft in the wool or the linen or any leather object in which the infection is. For it is an active leprosy. It is burned with fire. But if the priest looks and sees that the infection has not spread in the garment or in the warp of the weft or in any leather object, then the priest shall give command, and they shall wash that in which the infection is, and he shall shut it up another 7 days. So here, let's just say you had a bolt of linen, right? And you're like, it's got that reddish thing on it. That might be leprosy. Let's bring it to the priest. And the priest looks at it and goes, that could be leprosy. We're going to put it over here for 7 days and watch it. And after 7 days, if it has expanded, that reddish spot, oh yeah, that's an active leprosy. Burn it. Burn it with fire. Or after 7 days, you're like, no, it hadn't changed. That's not an active leprosy. That's just a stain from an old leprosy. Wash it. Cool. Right? So again, super de-duper, practical, tactical, like logical. Super logical. Now, don't get me wrong. Also boring as watching the grass grow, but super practical. And the priest shall look at the infection after it has been washed and see if the infection has not changed in appearance, though the infection is not spread. It is unclean, and then burn it with fire. It is eaten away in its inside or outside. If washing it doesn't fix it, then burn it. And if the priest shall look and see that the infection has faded after washing it, then he shall tear it out of the garment or out of the warp or out of the weft or out of the leather. And if it's still seen in the garment or still in the weft, the leather, and the spreading infection, burn it with fire, that in which the infection is. And if you wash the garment or the warp or the weft or any leather object, if the infection has disappeared from it, then it shall be washed a second time, and it shall be clean. So if washing it the first time worked, okay, wash it a second time. Now that crap is clean, man. No more problems. However, washing it the first time it doesn't fix it, burn it with fire. Get out of here, chicken. We got business to do. This is the Torah, the instruction of the infection of leprosy in a garment of wool or linen or warp or weft or any leather object, to pronounce it clean or to pronounce it unclean. Okay, so that's the end of 13. 14 is also a beast, and it really, I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4.5 columns. So it's a page and a half, 2 pages. It's 2 1/4 pages long, and that'll take us probably another 20 minutes to read. Oh. Father, tell me if I should read it or not. Yep, we're going to read it. Because that way we will have just handled all the leprosy stuff. Which, you know, this will go long. You guys can watch it in segments. Now you know what to do when you have babies. Now you know what to do when you have leprosy. Thanks, Yah. This is good stuff. We did finish a chapter, so we should hydrate. I get those comments occasionally. Coffee doesn't hydrate you. It's a diuretic. It's going to make you pee and be dehydrated. I know. I'm being facetious. I know. I'm aware. We only have about another 20 minutes worth of coffee anyway. Now I'm going to have to re-up on the holy water and then read the Brit Hadashah. All right. Everybody simmer down. Simmer down. All right. 14. So this is how we cleanse a leper. You know, before we do that, before we read 14, just flip over to Matthew 8. Okay, T. Thanks, guys. No problem, T. Come on, where you at? Matthew 8. This is Yeshua. This is directly after the Sermon on the Mount. You might have heard of it. Probably the most popular teaching that Messiah ever gave, which we will get to. In fact, we'll be in that in the Brit Hadashah, Matthew 5 and 6. This will post Friday evening, then that will post Sunday. So Matthew 8, and when he, Yeshua, came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him, and see, a leper came and bowed before him, saying, Master, if you desire, are you able to make me clean? Saying, Master, if you desire, you are able to make me clean. And stretching out his hand, Yeshua touched him, saying, I desire it, be cleansed. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Yeshua said to him, See, mention it to no one, but go your way, showing yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moshe commanded as a witness to them. I just want to point out here, Yeshua Messiah, Jesus the Christ, heals this guy instantly of leprosy, which is awesome. Like, that's super awesome. And then what does he tell him to do? And Yeshua said to him, See, mention it to no one, but go your way, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moshe commanded as a witness to them. We're about to get into that. So I just wanted to make the point here that the concept that Messiah did away with the law, Messiah literally just healed a guy of leprosy, which, as we've seen, there's a whole lot that goes into dealing with this leprosy, and Yeshua, because he has authority over everything in heaven and earth given to him by the Most High, and he is, you know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? He is divine. He can do these things like that, and so can we, if we learn to wield that authority through Yeshua Messiah. Remember that, because that's real. That's real life. But he heals this guy instantly. And then what does he tell him to do? Our Messiah, our New Testament, renewed covenant Messiah, says, go see the priest and offer up what is required to you as told to you by Moshe. I didn't make that up. It's right there in Matthew. Okay? Yeshua taught Torah. And we're going to get into that in the Brit Hadashah. We are getting into that in the Brit Hadashah. Yeshua taught Torah. He taught the law, the Mosaic law. I mean, he understands, yeah, I'm going to get on a tangent here, but just understand that Messiah heals this guy and then tells him, go on your way, tell no one, go see the priest and offer the offering that was commanded to you by Moshe. He didn't come to replace the law, to usurp the law, to do away with the law. He came to fulfill it, to embody it. And we see that repeatedly over and over, but you got to have eyes to see and ears to hear in order to get that. And you got to read your Bible for yourself. You just have to read your Bible for yourself, because for whatever reason, the Jews don't get it. Most Christians don't get it. And there's a lot of emptiness. There's a void in here that people are trying to fill with religion, and religion doesn't get it. It's a deep spiritual relationship, and it starts with reading your Bible for yourself, and all these things just open up to you. It's like watching a flower blossom. You're like, oh, that's cool, and then poof, wow, that's beautiful. Wow, that's mind-blowing. That's incredible. So, yeah, it was not done away with by Messiah. All right, 14. And I'm going to book it, y'all. I'm going to try, and this ain't going to be short, but I'm going to try my best. Where'd my puppies go? Come here. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, this shall be the Torah of the leper for the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall look and see if the leprosy has healed in the leper. Matthew 8. And then the priest shall command, and he shall take for him who is to be cleansed 2 live and clean birds, and cedar wood, and a scarlet, and a hyssop. And the priest shall command, and he shall slay one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. Let him take the live bird and the cedar wood and the scarlet and the hyssop, and dip them in the live bird of the blood of the bird that was slain over the running water. And he shall sprinkle it 7 times on him who is to be cleansed from the leprosy, and he shall pronounce him clean, and he shall let the live bird loose in an open field. What in the world's going on there? Okay, let's back up. Guy has leprosy, he goes to the priest is going to cleanse him. 2 birds, takes 2 birds. An earthen pot with running water. Fill the pot up from running water, put the bird in the pot, cut its head off, and the blood goes into the pot, okay? Death. Cedar branch, which these were not the cedars of Lebanon, okay, because they were gigantic. These are probably more like juniper trees, you know, kind of more like eastern red cedar, which I've just, of all the ones that I don't have one right here, although I'm lying. Let's see, that's a cedar tree. That's a cedar tree right there. Okay, so a cedar branch. You take that cedar branch, okay, so you have a branch. On the end of that, you take hyssop, and they would bind the hyssop on the end of the branch, and the live bird would be bound on the end of the branch. And they would dip that into the water and raise it up out of the blood. Life and death. Death. Rising from death, resurrection. This is all foreshadowing of Messiah. Matthew 8, it all ties together, right? Life and death. Baptism, below the water, above the water, right? And then the priest would sprinkle that on the guy 7 times. And in the doing of that, that bird would take off and fly away. Resurrection, being made whole again, right? Like, it's very symbolic. And to that end, and I haven't researched this, but I can guarantee you somewhere in there on some level, it's also super practical. I don't know what the antimicrobial values. I mean, I know cedar oil is a very powerful oil. Hyssop, I know, is used for anointing. I don't know about bird blood, but blood is always involved in covenants. But the whole thing is very reminiscent. It's deeply reminiscent of the death and resurrection, of death and rebirth, right? Of being made clean. So Yeshua heals this guy, Matthew 8, instantly, says, go to the priest and do this. This is what he's telling him to do, right? And I can think the symbolism, just seeing that, it would be like a weight coming off their shoulders. I can breathe again. Watching that bird fly away would have been very powerful if you were the person that was afflicted with this. All right, shut up and read the Bible. Sorry. Guys, I'm sorry. And he who is to be cleansed shall wash his garments and shave off all of his hair and wash himself in water, and he shall be clean. Then after that he comes into the camp, and he shall stay outside his tent 7 days, because the stuff might be in his tent. But he's clean, his garments are clean, and he shaved himself. So all those little bugs got nowhere to go, right? Good talk. And on the 8th day, and on the 7th day it shall be that he shaves off all the hair of his head and his beard and his eyebrows, even all the hair he shaves off, all of it. And he shall wash his garments and wash his body in water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he takes 2 male lambs, perfect ones, and on the eve, and 1 ewe lamb, a year old, a perfect one, and 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. And the priest who is cleansing shall present the man who is to be cleansed with these offerings before Yahweh at the door of the tent of appointment. So they're coming to the tent of appointment. Remember that? The boss is tall. We talked about that. And here he's presenting these 3 sheep, three ephahs, 3/10 of an ephah of flour, grain offering, oil offering. And the priest shall take 1 male lamb and bring it as a guilt offering and a log of oil, and wave them as a wave offering before Yahweh. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he slays the sin offering and the ascending offering in a set apart place. For the guilt offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest. It is most set apart. So this is a gift to the priest, right? This is provision for the priesthood. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering, and the priest shall put it onto the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. And this is very similar to the anointing of Aaron and his sons. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is on his left hand, and shall sprinkle some of the oil with his finger 7 times before Yahweh. They're marking this person as clean. So as this person comes back into the congregation, there's like, isn't that Uri? And didn't Uri have leprosy? And they're like, he must be good. He's got no hair. He's got blood on his earlobe. Like, he smells like oil. He's good. Like, he's good. Again, this is IFF, identification, friend or foe, like in a visual. And you see a lot of that with the Hebrews. And remember, this is a culture of people we're talking about, 3 to 5 million people. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. I just got back from working in Collin County, Texas, which now has 1 million people in it. So we're talking 5 times the population of Collin County, Texas. Think about that. Okay, 3 to 5 million people. I don't remember how many people live in New York City, but perhaps half the population of New York City. Yeah, it's a lot of people. So it's good to know at a glance, oh, that guy's good. He's got the blood on his earlobe and blood on his hand and yada, yada, yada. Okay? And the rest of the oil in his hand, the priest puts some on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the oil of the hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on the blood of the guilt offering. So he goes over the top of the blood with the oil as well. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he puts on the head of him who is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make atonement for him before Yahweh. And the priest shall make the sin offering and make atonement for him who is to be cleansed from his uncleanliness. Then afterwards he slays the ascending offering. And the priest shall offer the ascending offering and the grain offering to the slaughter place, and the priest shall make atonement for him, and he shall be clean. But if he is poor and unable to afford it, then he shall take 1 male lamb as a guilt offering to be waved, and make atonement for him, and 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, and a log of oil. And 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to afford. One is the sin offering, the other is the ascending offering. So again, we have the lamb will go to the priests as provision for them, and then 2 turtle doves or young pigeons. One is the sin offering, and the other is the ascending offering, the sweet fragrance unto Yahweh. Okay, so there's still a provision here for people who, you know, are of a that got lower income. Okay. And he shall bring them to the priest, and on the 8th day for his cleansing to the door of tent of appointment before Yahweh. And the priest shall take the lamb, the guilt offering, and the log oil, and the wave offering before Yahweh, and slay the lamb, the guilt offering, and some of the blood of the guilt offering, tip of the ear, the same thing. And the priest pours some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall sprinkle it with his right finger on the oil of the left hand 7 times before Yahweh. They're foot stomping this, so it's twice in a short period of time, which basically means pay attention, don't rush through it, sorry. And the priest shall put some of the oil of that in his hand on the tip of the right ear of him to his be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot, in the place of the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil is on the priest's hands. He puts on the head of him who is to be cleansed, to make atonement for him before Yahweh. And he shall prepare 1 of the turtle doves or young pigeons, such as he is able to afford, that which he is able to afford, the one as a sin offering and the other as an ascending offering with the grain offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him who is to be cleansed before Yahweh. This is the Torah, the instruction for one who has had an infection of leprosy, who is unable to afford for his cleansing. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as a possession, and I put a plague of leprosy in the house in the land of your possessions, then, and okay, we'll stop right there. When you come into the land of Canaan, which means not yet, when you come into the land of Canaan, the promised land, Yahweh says, and I put a plague of leprosy in a house in the land of your possession. Now, there's lots of opinion and conjecture on this. One is, Yah, the Father, put leprosy in these houses to drive people out, knowing that the Hebrews were going to come and take occupation of them. Although we know that, when they go into Canaan, they go in with swords in hand, man. But anyway, multifaceted battles and tactics. So he's saying when this happens, when you go into Canaan and you come into a house that has leprosy in it, okay? Then shall the one who owns the house come and inform the priest, saying, it seems to me that there is some plague in the house. And the priest shall command, and they shall empty the house before the priest goes in to look at the plague, so that all that is in the house is not made unclean. And after that, the priest goes in to look at the house. So they take the stuff out of the house because they're about to do some things in it, and they don't want to make the contents of the house unclean, so they remove it. And he shall look at the plague and see if the plague is on the walls of the house with sunken places, greenish or reddish, which appear to be deep in the wall. Now, these are stacked stone walls, sometimes just stacked and then plastered on the outside of the wall, or sometimes stacked with mortar, basic architecture. And this is a problem that happens in stacked stone walls, stacked stone wall dwellings to this day. So, again, this is legitimate. Then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house and shut up the house for 7 days. We'll close the door for 7 days. Everybody get up. We'll see what happens. And if it gets better, okay. If it gets worse, okay. We know how to deal with it. So step one is assess. Right? We've seen this before already. And the priest shall come again on the 7th day and look and see if the plague has spread on the walls of the house. Then the priest shall command, and they shall remove the stones with the plague in them, and they shall throw them outside the city and into an unclean place. So the bad stones, we're going to take them out. So, demolition. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and then take other mortar and plaster the house. So put it back together again. Cut out the bad, put good new ones in, plaster over the top. Shabba-dabba-da, I lost my place. While he lets the house be, shabba-dabba-da, plague in them, remove the stones with plague in them, and they shall throw them outside the city into an unclean place. While he lets the house be scraped inside all around, and the dust that they scrape off shall pour out in an unclean place outside the city. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and take other mortar and plaster the house. And if the plague comes back and breaks out in the house after he has removed the stones, after he has scraped the house, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come and look and see if the plague has spread in the house. It is an active leprosy in the house. It is unclean. And he shall break down the house, its stones, its timber, and all the plaster of the house, and he shall bring them outside the city to an unclean place. And he who goes into the house all the days while it is shut up becomes unclean until evening. Don't go in there, bro. You're going to be unclean. And he who lies down in the house has to wash his garments, and he who eats in the house has to wash his garments. However, if the priest indeed comes and looks at it and sees that the plague has not spread in the house after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean because the plague is healed. So if nothing's changed in 7 days, it's not an active plague, no big deal. And to cleanse the house, he shall take 2 birds and cedar wood and scarlet and hyssop, and he shall slay one of the birds just like we saw in Matthew 8 in the beginning of 14, here Leviticus 14. And he shall slay one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water, and he shall take the cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet and the live bird and dip them in the blood of the slain bird. And the water again is there is because there's not much blood in a bird. And so you're not going to get a whole lot out of a bird. So the water catches the blood of the bird, and then amplifies it or increases the quantity of it. Yeah, so that the blood intermingles with the water. Dip them in the blood of the slain bird and in the running water, and shall sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird and running water and a live bird, with the cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet. And he shall let the live bird loose outside the city in the open field, and shall make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the Torah for any infection of leprosy and eruption, and for leprosy of a garment or a house, and a swelling and a scab and a bright spot, to each when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the Torah of leprosy. Okie dokie. Good, and then, in 15, next week, we'll just talk about ejaculation. Because, why not? Sorry, Mom and Dad. I hope the kids had earmuffs on. Now you'll know for next week. My bad. So guys, that's the end of Leviticus 14. Thanks for sticking with me. I assume that you did. I never look at the analytics on these videos, so I don't know if people make it all the way to the end or not. That would maybe be something to do. Although then that would probably encourage me to talk faster, which would not be good for the reading of the word. And it would probably make me more self-conscious about all of this. So I'm not going to look at the analytics. Good. Here's the deal, y'all. This book is super practical. We've seen that repeatedly. It's super practical. If you get leprosy, here's what you do. Also, huge takeaway here. After Messiah heals a leper, and this is in 3 books. I think it's in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. After he heals this guy, what does he tell him to do? Go see the priest and do what Moshe commanded you to do. That's quintessential to the way that I believe, okay? Because I just want to show you guys something, and I've done this before, but I'll do it again for everybody who's new or maybe hasn't seen. And again, by the way, I would very much so encourage you to get into our Shabbat playlist, okay? So, here you go. The second writings, the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. Look at the difference. This is the New Testament. This is the Old Testament. New Testament, Old Testament. There's so much information and context that we're missing out on if we don't acquaint ourselves with the Old Testament. And it's not just like, oh yeah, that'd be good to know for context. It's what Messiah taught. I mean, when he rebukes the Pharisees and the Sadducees, he literally says, you don't know me because you don't know Moshe. You don't know who Moses was. Of course you don't know who I am. You don't do his things, which is why you don't do my things, right? And it's repeatedly proven out in Scripture, Old Testament and New Testament. The Old Testament consistently prophesies the New Testament, just like we see with this bird, dipping this bird in the water and then bringing it out again and then it flying off. Like that's the resurrection, man. Like it obviously that's the resurrection, but it points directly to the resurrection. And what does Messiah tell this guy to do? Go do that after he heals him. Doesn't go, yeah, you're good, man. You're good. Just listen, show up to church on Sunday for a couple hours, look nice, act nice. You're good. No, he says, yeah, be healed. You're healed. Now go to the priest, be inspected, and do the things that Moshe told you to do. That's straight from the words of Messiah. So that's what I mean by read your Bibles, guys. Read your dang Bible. And don't take anybody's word, including my word for it. See it with your own eyes and pray to the Father. Literally, before I open this word every day, I pray over it and I say, Father, just show me what I need to see today and teach me, instruct me, and train me so that I can be yours, so that I can be good for you, so that I can win battles for your kingdom, so that I can step foot on this battlefield and swing my axe and win victories for you. And I have an instruction manual, and it's right here. And I pray over it every day before I open it. And every day, some days it convicts me to tears because it's so spot on. It's like, Father, you know exactly what you're doing. It's incredible. So my faith is that thin blank page in between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And the cornerstone of that is Yeshua Messiah, salvation through Messiah. And then, as a gift of that, as a gift of the Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, I have it written on my heart, Hebrews 8:10, 8:6, 8:8, 8:10, to do these things in this Old Testament because the Father tells us to do them and Messiah tells us to do them. So that's what I got for you all this week. Be blessed. Shalom.